It's Friday, August 16th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show. Welcome to the show. Thank God it's Friday. um, so, again, show, I do 10 to 15 minutes every day, sometimes a few minutes longer. I try to do 10 or 15 minutes every day. Encourage us to be open to opposing views, to be better citizens, to understand the issues from various perspectives. And so go through a lot of 5 different websites, sources of information. Notice I carefully did not say news, because these sources have a whole lot of extra, bias opinion in them. So normally go from, let's go right to left this time. So Breitbart, normally conservative leaning and normally pretty supportive of Mr. Trump. Fox News, maybe slightly less so. NPR, National Public Radio, their website, mostly neutral, CNN, a little bit more left-leaning, and then Huffington Post, pretty famously most liberal. And so I'm looking through today's headlines, and so there's a couple of things. So just two different things I want to talk about. So one is Greenland, and secondly is Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. So let's talk about Epstein first. So there was a whole lot of discussion about his suicide or apparent suicide, and then there was some reports that there were some broken bones in his neck, and so then people just launched right down this conspiracy theory thing. Of course, Mr. Trump seemed to love that idea, because he picked that up from a comedian or something, posted some things on this conspiracy theory that the Clintons had somehow had Mr. Epstein killed, although it appears that Mr. Trump knew Mr. Epstein every bit as well as the Clintons ever did. But anyway, and then, up goes the conspiracy theories. Now, so remember that, Mr. Trump and conspiracy theories, because he loves them and he promotes them all the time. Obviously, especially the ones that he thinks benefits him in a political or business arena. And so the New York medical examiner says no. The total sum of the injuries indicates that he successfully committed suicide in a cell. And the other thing was, well, a lot of people initially thought he was on a suicide watch, but they've done internal investigations and they've already found out that some of the guards, one, he was definitely removed from a suicide watch, and then two, the guards were understaffed, so a bunch of them working overtime, and they were being lax about making the rounds, and so they falsely logged that they went past. This is all based on cameras, so there's cameras all over the prison, and so now that this has happened, those surveillance films have all been studied, and yes, the guards failed to go by Mr. Epstein's cell on a regular basis, and so he was able to kill himself by suicide, by hanging himself, apparently with a bed sheet or something. So, okay, so conspiracy theories. And then the second thing is Greenland. So today, Mr. Trump decided that he was going to announce that he wanted to buy Greenland. Not him. He wanted our country to buy Greenland. And Greenland responded, "We're not interested." Now, so this all goes toward the true subject that I want to talk about in today's 10 minutes, which is Mr. Trump's dementia. which is, clearly coming upon him. It's called early onset dementia because he's only in his 70s, and normally dementia waits until like late 80s or 90s for most people. If they ever get it, it's usually later. But at the moment, he's in his 70s, and so I've put this in past videos, and I say it today that this is oncoming for him, and this is something that several other people have said. And what's it based on? Well, I've seen myself at least 5 or 6 independent interviews with people that have worked with him over time. And those interviews were like, well, what do you think of him? And very, very common comments about, well, he's not nearly as astute as he was a couple of decades ago. They talk about his vocabulary is much less, his ability to hold a conversation, to focus on issues or focus on the moment. This is all very degraded, according to several people that have known him for years. And then you take those same things and you compare at least the end of it, what they're talking about, with what we can observe. So he tweets all the time, and we all know this, okay? He tweets all the time, and when he does, he makes all kinds of mistakes. Now, okay, it's not that big a grammar or whatever, but there's a lot of these things that just I'm sorry, he grossly misspells words, and Twitter has a spell checker, and so he does stuff like he misspells his wife's name, Melanie, instead of Melania, for example. Well, okay, sometimes, I know everybody does this. You're proofing something you see, and you think that you've written it, and in your mind, you've written it the right way, you've typed it out the right way. So, for example, you might leave out a word, the, and when you read it through after, like checking yourself, well, it's not there, but you read it, and that's why normally if you're doing anything that isn't like instant messaging and texting, you would, write a letter to somebody, set it aside at least for a few minutes, and then read it again to make sure you haven't made those kinds of common, simple mistakes that all of us make. But he makes them on a regular basis. And then the slurred speech. So he really has trouble saying words like origin. He tried. There was one time he was talking about the origin of the investigation. I think he was talking about the Mueller investigation, and he could not say the word origin. It kept coming out oranges, orange. It's origin, and he can't say anonymous, United States, lawmaker, Venezuela, Tanzania, Beyonce, Nambia, diversionary, Puerto Rico, ludicrous, whoops, I said anonymous already, coverage, heroin. The list goes on and on and on. And so it's really clear the fact that his vocabulary is way down from what it was. His ability to focus and maintain attention is way down from what it was. His I hate this when this happens. His predication to go to anger or whatever, well, that part of it is because he's a massive narcissist, but the other part of it is, and a con man, But the other part of it is that the symptoms of dementia, that he cannot accept any criticism whatsoever without flying to anger. These things are all tied together. And then the slurred speech and the inability to recognize words that are, grossly misspelled. This, all of it ties together to say that Mr. Trump, unfortunately for him, he's entering into an early state of dementia. He's just at the precipice of going into this. That's unfortunate for him, and we wouldn't. No one would want that for anyone. Okay, that's dementia is a very, very tough thing for the individual that's suffering and for everyone around him. But especially we're in trouble because he's the president of the United States, and as such, we just can't have the president in a mental state that is so challenged, I guess. So that's one of the many reasons why I am, really seeking an alternative for him in the office of the presidency, and why I'm so focused on the Democratic candidates. They're, unfortunately, and I've talked many times about the two-party system and how I don't like it, but it is what we have. And the Republicans are only going to offer up Mr. Trump, who has these, he's a con man and has this dementia issue, okay? So that's just not acceptable unless there's nobody on the Democratic side that's better than that. And I look at the Democratic side, and I don't necessarily always agree with everything that they're saying, but I know, as far as mental acuity and, truthfulness and whatnot, they're in a league beyond what we currently have in the office. So now I'm laser beam focused on trying to figure out and help forward the cause of one of those Democratic candidates that would make hopefully the best commander-in-chief to replace Mr. Trump in the 2020 election. So anyway, in summary, for myriad reasons, there's myriad evidence behind why Mr. Trump is just on the onset of dementia, and that's obviously very problematic. And so it's time to look beyond his services to this country. So for the Pro and Con Show, I'm again your host, Michael James Ott, for Friday, August 16th, 2019. And until the next show, which is tomorrow,